It began as a hushed conversation behind palace walls, one that aides tried to downplay and courtiers quickly silenced. But the expression on King Charles's face after that confidential meeting told a different story. Something had changed. Something connected to Queen Elizabeth's final wishes. And before long, whispers spread through the corridors that a revelation was about to shake the monarchy to its core. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. For weeks, there had been a growing sense of unease surrounding the royal household. Those closest to the institution reportedly noticed subtle shifts that could not easily be explained. Meetings were being scheduled at unusual hours. Long-serving advisors who normally moved through palace affairs with quiet confidence suddenly appeared guarded and cautious. Conversations stopped when certain names were mentioned. Questions were answered with carefully chosen words. While no official announcement had been made, many inside royal circles quietly suspected that something significant was unfolding behind closed doors. That suspicion intensified when King Charles personally authorized what insiders described as one of the most restricted meetings in recent memory. Reports suggest invitations were issued to only a select handful of individuals. Senior royal advisors, trusted legal custodians, and figures responsible for preserving some of the monarchy's most sensitive records were reportedly called together under conditions of extraordinary confidentiality. Even within an institution built upon discretion, the level of secrecy surrounding this gathering raised eyebrows. Palace staff reportedly began noticing unusual security measures almost immediately. Access to certain areas was limited, schedules were altered. Several members of staff were instructed to keep their distance from parts of the royal residence that would normally see regular activity. Such precautions naturally fueled speculation. After all, extraordinary secrecy often signals extraordinary circumstances. Yet despite the growing rumors, official silence remained firmly in place. At the center of those whispers was a possibility few had anticipated. According to reports circulating among royal observers, the discussion focused on a final instruction left behind by Queen Elizabeth herself. For years, speculation had surrounded the existence of private guidance preserved for future generations of the monarchy. While much of that speculation had been dismissed as rumor, the circumstances surrounding this meeting suddenly caused many to reconsider what they thought they knew. What truly shocked observers, however, was the presence of two unexpected attendees. Prince William and Queen Camilla were reportedly requested to attend personally. That decision alone transformed what might have been viewed as a routine consultation into something far more consequential. Royal insiders immediately began asking the same question. Why were William and Camilla needed for a discussion involving Queen Elizabeth's final wishes? What role could they possibly play in a matter important enough to warrant such secrecy? The answers did not come immediately. Instead, the mystery deepened. Rumors spread that a long-protected royal document had resurfaced after years of remaining hidden from public view. Some believed it contained guidance intended specifically for King Charles. Others suggested it addressed the future direction of the monarchy itself. Whatever the truth may have been, one thing became increasingly clear. The atmosphere surrounding the palace had changed dramatically. Even more intriguing were claims from media insiders who later suggested that tensions had been building for weeks before this meeting ever took place. According to those reports, subtle disagreements had emerged behind the scenes. Quiet discussions regarding legacy, responsibility, and the future of the crown were allegedly becoming more frequent. None of it was visible to the public at the time, but those watching closely sensed that important decisions were approaching. As anticipation continued to grow, so too did the realization that this gathering was about far more than routine royal business. Something from the past was reaching into the present. A voice long absent was about to be heard once again. And the people sitting in that room reportedly understood the significance better than anyone else. Because the document Charles prepared to reveal was not simply a family message. It was a final instruction capable of reshaping the future of the crown itself. For years, many believed Queen Elizabeth had left behind more than memories and traditions. Hidden within the royal archives was said to be a final instruction, carefully preserved and protected until the precise moment it was needed. The possibility alone was enough to capture attention throughout royal circles. Queen Elizabeth was never known for impulsive decisions. Throughout her historic reign, she built a reputation on patience, discipline, and an extraordinary ability to think decades ahead. While political leaders came and went, while governments rose and fell, And while family crises repeatedly tested the institution she devoted her life to protecting, she remained focused on one objective above all others: ensuring the survival of the monarchy long after her own chapter had ended. That commitment shaped nearly every major decision she made, which is why the growing speculation surrounding a final instruction refused to disappear. Many who studied her reign often pointed to her remarkable understanding of history. She knew that every generation of royals faced challenges unlike those that came before. She understood that popularity could rise and fall. Public opinion could shift overnight. Family relationships could become strained. Yet through every storm, she believed the crown had to remain larger than any individual who wore it. That belief became the foundation of her legacy, and according to persistent whispers within palace circles, it may also have become the foundation of the instruction now being discussed behind closed doors. What made the rumors even more compelling was the suggestion that trusted advisors had spent years protecting sensitive materials connected to the late Queen's final wishes. These were not ordinary records. Reports suggested that only a small number of individuals were aware of their existence, and an even smaller group understood their significance. Some insiders claimed the materials were carefully preserved with strict instructions regarding when they could be accessed. Others believed their contents were intended to remain dormant until the monarchy reached a moment of genuine uncertainty. And uncertainty, many believed, had arrived. Following Queen Elizabeth's passing, the royal family entered a period unlike any it had experienced in decades. The transition from one reign to another was always expected to be difficult, but events seemed to move faster than anyone anticipated. Public expectations shifted. Internal pressures intensified. Every decision carried greater consequences. The burden resting upon King Charles's shoulders grew heavier with each passing month. While he worked to establish his reign, questions about the future of the monarchy continued to circulate beneath the surface. Those questions became even more urgent as concerns surrounding Charles's health entered public discussion. Suddenly, conversations about succession, stability, and long-term planning no longer felt distant. They felt immediate. They felt unavoidable. The institution Queen Elizabeth had spent 70 years protecting was entering another defining chapter, and many wondered whether she had anticipated exactly this moment. That possibility fueled growing speculation surrounding what some described as a sealed directive. No one seemed certain of its contents. Some believed it contained strategic guidance intended for Charles alone. Others suspected it addressed the future responsibilities of senior royals. A few even suggested it contained recommendations regarding the next generation of leadership. The uncertainty only amplified the mystery because everyone appeared to agree on one thing. Whatever was written inside carried enough importance to remain hidden for years. As those theories spread, attention increasingly turned toward the timing of its release. Why now? Why would a document preserved for so long suddenly emerge at this particular moment? That question lingered over every conversation, every rumor, and every carefully worded denial. The answer, many believed, could not be separated from the challenges currently confronting the monarchy. If Queen Elizabeth truly left behind guidance for the future, then perhaps those entrusted with protecting it had concluded that the future had finally arrived. With each passing day, anticipation continued to build. The mystery surrounding the instruction grew larger than the document itself. Expectations soared, speculation intensified, and throughout the palace, a quiet realization began to take hold that once the contents were finally revealed, nothing would feel quite the same again. As anticipation spread through the palace, few could have imagined what the instruction actually contained, or who would be most affected by it. The atmosphere reportedly turned ice cold when Charles finally opened the document. What began as a formal gathering quickly transformed into one of the most tense royal meetings in recent memory. By that point, anticipation had already reached extraordinary levels. Weeks of rumors, unanswered questions, and growing uncertainty had created an almost unbearable sense of expectation among those closest to the monarchy. Yet even with all the speculation circulating through royal circles, few were truly prepared for the significance of what was about to unfold. The meeting itself had been surrounded by such unusual secrecy that many participants reportedly arrived without knowing exactly what they were about to hear. They knew only that the matter concerned Queen Elizabeth's final wishes, and that King Charles had personally insisted upon their presence. According to palace whispers, the gathering carried an atmosphere unlike ordinary royal consultations. This was not a discussion about scheduling, public appearances, or routine constitutional matters. There was a seriousness hanging over the proceedings that immediately distinguished it from countless meetings that had come before. Senior advisors who had spent decades navigating royal affairs reportedly sensed that they were witnessing a moment that could one day be remembered as a turning point in the history of the modern monarchy. As the conversation began, Charles reportedly appeared more reflective than commanding. For those present, that alone was noteworthy. Throughout his life, he had carried the weight of preparation, spending decades waiting to inherit responsibilities that would eventually become his. Yet now, according to accounts that later emerged, he seemed less focused on his own role and more concerned with the wishes of the woman whose reign had defined an era. The document before him was not simply a record preserved in royal archives. It represented a direct connection to Queen Elizabeth's vision for the future. Then came the moment everyone had been waiting for. Reports suggest Charles carefully began presenting the preserved instruction, breaking a silence that had settled heavily over the room. Almost immediately, the mood shifted. The mystery that had fueled so much speculation was finally beginning to give way to answers. Yet with every detail that emerged, new questions seemed to arise. Rather than bringing comfort, the contents reportedly deepened the sense of uncertainty among those listening. Witnesses later described an almost complete silence among attendees as the instruction was discussed. No interruptions, no hurried reactions, no immediate challenges. Instead, there was a growing realization that the significance of the document extended far beyond what anyone had initially assumed. What many expected to be a personal message was beginning to sound far more consequential. That realization reportedly hit Prince William particularly hard. For years, he had lived with the knowledge that immense responsibilities awaited him. Yet hearing Queen Elizabeth's final wishes discussed in such direct terms appeared to carry a different emotional weight. According to insiders, his attention never wavered. The deeper the discussion moved, the clearer it became that the future of the institution itself was somehow connected to what was being revealed. Questions that had once felt distant suddenly became immediate. Camilla, meanwhile, reportedly experienced a different reaction altogether. Observers later claimed there were moments when her unease became increasingly difficult to conceal. No one outside that room could know precisely what she was thinking, but several accounts suggested she understood that the instruction might have implications extending beyond ceremonial symbolism. As details continued to emerge, speculation grew that certain assumptions about the monarchy's future were being quietly challenged. Around them, senior aides reportedly began grasping the gravity of the moment. These were individuals accustomed to handling matters of enormous importance. They had witnessed transitions, crises, celebrations, and controversies. Yet even they appeared struck by the emotional weight attached to Queen Elizabeth's final wishes. Her voice may have been absent, but the authority of her legacy remained unmistakable. Every sentence seemed to carry the accumulated wisdom of a reign that had endured for generations. What made the moment so powerful was not simply the content of the instruction itself. It was the realization that Queen Elizabeth had anticipated challenges many years before they fully emerged. Her guidance appeared designed not for a specific controversy, but for an uncertain future she knew would eventually arrive. The room reportedly understood that they were not merely discussing history. They were confronting decisions that would shape what came next. As emotions intensified and the implications became harder to ignore, a new understanding began taking hold among those present. The document was important, certainly, but it was no longer the only thing that mattered. Beneath the words themselves was something larger, something more profound, something capable of altering relationships, responsibilities, and expectations in ways few had considered. Yet, the instruction itself was only part of the story. The deeper meaning behind it carried consequences no one had anticipated. According to palace whispers, Queen Elizabeth's final instruction focused on a principle she valued above all else: preserving the institution before protecting any individual. As those words began to settle over the gathering, many of the questions that had fueled weeks of speculation suddenly started to make sense. The instruction was not centered on personalities. It was not built around private grievances, family disputes, or temporary challenges. Instead, it reportedly reflected a belief that had guided Queen Elizabeth throughout her entire reign. For decades, she had carried the responsibility of protecting an institution that existed long before her and would continue long after her. That responsibility demanded sacrifice, it demanded discipline, and perhaps most importantly, it demanded the willingness to place duty above personal preference. Those who studied Elizabeth's life often pointed to that commitment as the defining feature of her character. She understood better than almost anyone the difference between serving the crown and benefiting from it. While others might focus on privilege, status, or influence, she consistently returned to the same principle. The monarchy could survive individual crises. It could survive controversy. It could even survive periods of public doubt. But it could not survive if those entrusted with protecting it began placing themselves above the institution itself. According to accounts that later emerged, that philosophy formed the heart of the instruction being discussed. The message reportedly emphasized continuity over convenience, responsibility over ambition, and service over personal advantage. These were not new ideas within royal life. Yet hearing them delivered through Queen Elizabeth's final guidance gave them extraordinary weight. Suddenly, concepts that had often been treated as traditions felt more like direct expectations. What appeared to resonate most strongly was the instructions' focus on future generations. Elizabeth had spent much of her reign thinking beyond immediate concerns. She understood that every decision made today could influence the monarchy decades later. Reports suggest her guidance repeatedly returned to the importance of protecting those who would eventually inherit responsibility for the institution. It was not enough to preserve stability for the present moment. Stability had to be secured for those who would one day carry the burden forward. That naturally brought attention toward Prince William. For years, William had been viewed as the future of the monarchy. Public expectations surrounding him had grown steadily, particularly as discussions about the next era of royal leadership became more frequent. Yet according to insiders, Queen Elizabeth's instruction appeared to place even greater significance upon his role. Not because of titles or succession alone, but because of the responsibilities attached to them. The future king was being reminded that leadership within the monarchy was never intended to be a personal reward. It was a commitment to something larger than oneself. As the discussion continued, the instruction reportedly expanded beyond William and addressed broader expectations for all senior royals. Service, accountability, stability, responsibility. These themes emerged again and again. The message appeared remarkably consistent. Every generation would face its own challenges. Every individual would encounter moments when personal interests conflicted with institutional obligations. But according to the philosophy embedded within Elizabeth's guidance, the correct choice remained unchanged regardless of circumstance. That was precisely why the instruction proved so powerful. At its core, it forced everyone present to confront a difficult question. What happens when personal desires collide with public duty? Throughout royal history, that tension had shaped some of the monarchy's most dramatic chapters. Time and again, individuals were required to choose between what benefited them personally and what served the institution they represented. Some embraced that responsibility. Others struggled against it, but the conflict itself never disappeared. According to reports, this was the contrast that stunned those gathered around Charles. The instruction did not offer easy solutions. Instead, it presented a challenge. It demanded that every person hearing it examine their own priorities. Were they serving the monarchy, or were they expecting the monarchy to serve them? The distinction may have seemed subtle, but its implications were profound. As that realization spread through the room, emotions reportedly became impossible to ignore. For some, the instruction felt reassuring, a reaffirmation of values that had guided the crown for generations. For others, it may have raised uncomfortable questions about the future. What no one could deny, however, was the extraordinary force behind Elizabeth's message. Even after her passing, her influence remained capable of shaping conversations, decisions, and destinies. And as the meaning of Elizabeth's words settled over the room, attention shifted toward two individuals whose reactions revealed everything. For perhaps the first time in years, William reportedly found himself struggling to respond. The future king had spent decades preparing for responsibility, yet this moment carried a different kind of weight. For most of his life, William had lived beneath the shadow of destiny. From childhood, he understood that expectations followed him everywhere. Every decision, every public appearance, every milestone seemed connected to a future role he had not chosen but was born to inherit. Over time, he learned to carry that burden with discipline and composure. Yet according to palace whispers, Queen Elizabeth's final instruction touched something deeper than duty alone. It reached into questions of legacy, sacrifice, and responsibility in a way that few moments ever had before. Those closest to William have often spoken about the unique bond he shared with his grandmother, While the public saw a monarch and her grandson, insiders frequently described a relationship built upon guidance, trust, and a shared understanding of service. Queen Elizabeth reportedly recognized early on that William would one day face challenges unlike any future sovereign before him. The monarchy was changing. Public expectations were evolving. The world itself was becoming increasingly unpredictable. Because of that, many believe she invested significant time preparing him not simply for the throne, but for the pressures that would accompany it. As the discussion surrounding the instruction continued, reports suggest William became increasingly reflective. The words being presented were not arriving from advisors, strategists, or constitutional experts. They carried the authority of someone who had spent 70 years protecting the institution through triumphs, crises, scandals, and transformations. That reality gave every principle, every warning, and every expectation an emotional force that could not easily be ignored. For William, the message reportedly felt intensely personal. The instruction was not merely describing the future of the monarchy. In many ways, it was describing his future. Every reference to continuity, stability, and service seemed to reinforce the responsibilities waiting ahead. Every reminder about protecting the institution appeared to point toward decisions he would eventually have to make himself. The weight of succession had always existed in theory. Now it felt immediate, real, unavoidable. What made the moment even more powerful was the realization that Queen Elizabeth's guidance extended beyond titles and ceremonies. According to those familiar with the discussion, her message focused heavily on character. Leadership was not presented as privilege. It was presented as obligation. Success was not measured through popularity. It was measured through sacrifice. The future king was being reminded that preserving trust would sometimes require difficult choices, even painful ones. Behind the scenes, many believe Catherine played an important role during this period of reflection. Throughout the years, she had become one of William's strongest sources of stability. While public attention often focused on official duties and royal appearances, insiders frequently described their partnership as one built upon shared purpose. Reports suggest that as the responsibility surrounding the future intensified, Catherine's support became increasingly important. She understood the pressures he faced, because she had experienced many of them alongside him. That support mattered because expectations surrounding William's future reign were continuing to grow. Every development within the monarchy seemed to increase public interest in what kind of king he might eventually become. Admirers viewed him as a symbol of continuity. Critics scrutinized every decision. Supporters hoped he would modernize the institution while preserving its traditions. The expectations were enormous, and Queen Elizabeth's instruction appeared to acknowledge that reality directly. As the significance of the message became clearer, a larger realization reportedly began taking hold. This was not simply a discussion about preserving the past. It was about preparing for what came next. The monarchy was entering a period of transition, unlike anything it had experienced in decades. Familiar chapters were closing, new responsibilities were emerging. The future was moving closer with every passing day. For William, that realization may have been the most emotional part of all. The era shaped by Queen Elizabeth's presence had ended. King Charles was carrying the weight of the present, and increasingly, attention was turning toward the generation that would inherit the future. Whether he felt ready or not, a new chapter was approaching rapidly. But while William appeared overwhelmed by responsibility, Camilla faced a very different challenge. Observers later claimed that Camilla appeared unusually quiet as the implications of the instruction became clear. The confidence she often projected seemed replaced by uncertainty. For years, Camilla had occupied one of the most complex positions within the modern monarchy. Her journey into the heart of the royal institution had been anything but simple. Public opinion had shifted dramatically over time, transforming skepticism into a level of acceptance that once seemed impossible. Through patience, persistence, and years of public service, she eventually secured her place beside King Charles. Yet, according to palace whispers, the discussion surrounding Queen Elizabeth's final instruction appeared to touch upon concerns that reached far beyond titles and public perception. What reportedly unsettled many observers was not a specific statement directed toward Camilla, but the broader message embedded within the instruction itself. As Queen Elizabeth's emphasis on duty, continuity, and institutional responsibility became increasingly clear, some insiders began questioning how those priorities might influence future decisions within the royal household. The instructions seemed to place extraordinary importance on preserving the monarchy's long-term stability above all else. For some, that was reassuring. For others, it introduced new uncertainty. Reports suggest that as the implications unfolded, attention naturally shifted toward what the guidance might mean for existing relationships, responsibilities, and influence within the institution. After all, every royal household contains a delicate balance of personalities, priorities, and competing perspectives. Queen Elizabeth had spent decades maintaining that balance. Her final wishes now appeared to be reinforcing principles designed to protect it for generations to come. According to those familiar with the atmosphere surrounding the meeting, Camilla's reaction drew particular interest. While details remain largely speculative, several accounts suggested she appeared increasingly reflective as the discussion progressed. Those present reportedly sensed that the significance of the instruction extended beyond ceremonial symbolism. It seemed connected to larger questions about the future direction of the monarchy and the values that would guide it moving forward. The emotional complexity of that moment should not be underestimated. Camilla had spent years navigating extraordinary public scrutiny. Every step of her journey had been examined, criticized, debated, and analyzed. Success rarely arrived easily. Acceptance was earned gradually rather than granted immediately. Because of that history, any conversation concerning legacy and future influence carried enormous emotional weight. The stakes were not merely political or constitutional. They were deeply personal as well. Outside the meeting itself, reports suggest concerns began emerging among some of Camilla's supporters. While no one knew precisely how future events would unfold, speculation intensified regarding what Queen Elizabeth's guidance might mean in practical terms. Would it strengthen existing priorities within the institution? Would it accelerate shifts already underway? Would it reinforce the growing emphasis on preparing the next generation for leadership? Questions multiplied faster than answers. At the same time, broader dynamics within the royal household appeared to be evolving. The monarchy was entering a period of transition unlike any seen in decades. King Charles carried the responsibilities of the present. William increasingly represented the future. Senior advisors were focused on ensuring continuity during a time of uncertainty. Against that backdrop, every conversation about influence, responsibility, and succession carried added significance. This is where the issue of legacy became impossible to ignore. According to palace insiders, Queen Elizabeth's instructions seemed designed to shape not just immediate decisions, but the long-term direction of the institution itself. Legacy was no longer simply about individual achievements. It was about determining what values would endure after one generation passed responsibility to the next. That distinction reportedly created an atmosphere filled with tension because it encouraged everyone involved to think beyond current circumstances. As discussions continued, uncertainty appeared to spread throughout the room. No dramatic confrontations were necessary. No direct accusations were required. The weight of the instruction alone created enough pressure to leave a lasting impression. Every participant understood that the conversation they were having extended far beyond the present moment. It was connected to future reigns, future responsibilities, and future expectations. That is why insiders later described the atmosphere as so remarkably tense. The meeting was never simply about one person. It was never solely about William, Camilla, Charles, or any other individual. It was about the future identity of the monarchy itself. And as that realization took hold, the focus gradually expanded beyond personal reactions towards something much larger. Yet the greatest impact of the revelation was not personal. It was institutional, reaching far beyond any single royal. Within days, reports suggest the effects of the meeting began spreading throughout the royal establishment. Conversations changed, alliances shifted, and a sense of inevitability settled over the palace. What had initially been confined to a private gathering was now influencing discussions far beyond the room where Queen Elizabeth's final instruction had been revealed. According to palace insiders, there was a noticeable change in the atmosphere throughout the royal household. The instructions itself remained protected from public view, yet its impact was becoming increasingly difficult to contain. Those who had once spoken confidently about future plans reportedly became more cautious. Long-standing assumptions were quietly re-examined. Priorities that had seemed settled suddenly appeared open to reconsideration. Among staff, speculation intensified rapidly. For years, many had served under different generations of royal leadership, witnessing firsthand how transitions could reshape the institution. Yet insiders claimed this situation felt different. It was not simply the passing of responsibility from one monarch to another. It was the feeling that Queen Elizabeth's influence was still actively shaping decisions even after her reign had ended. That realization created a mixture of admiration, uncertainty, and anticipation among those responsible for supporting the Crown's daily operations. Reports suggest many staff members began discussing the same question. If the instruction carried such significance, what changes might eventually follow? Some believed it would reinforce existing traditions. Others suspected it could accelerate preparations already underway for the monarchy's next chapter. Regardless of individual opinions, there appeared to be broad agreement on one point. The institution was entering a period of profound reflection. That reflection reportedly extended to senior royals as well. According to observers, the meeting encouraged many within the family to reassess their own roles and responsibilities. The themes embedded within Queen Elizabeth's guidance, duty, continuity, sacrifice, and service, were not abstract concepts. They demanded practical consideration. Every senior royal understood that the monarchy's future would depend not only on public support but also on the decisions made behind closed doors during moments of transition. As news of unusual activity within royal circles gradually reached the public, interest intensified. Royal commentators, journalists, and longtime observers began paying closer attention to developments surrounding the palace. While few concrete details emerged, the mystery itself fueled growing fascination. The idea that Queen Elizabeth had left behind guidance capable of influencing future generations captured public imagination in a powerful way. Questions multiplied, theories emerged, and with every passing day, anticipation continued to build. What made the situation particularly compelling was the renewed focus on royal duty. Throughout modern history, the monarchy has repeatedly been tested by moments that forced difficult choices. Some transitions strengthened the institution, others exposed vulnerabilities. Yet the central question remained remarkably consistent across generations. Could personal interests be set aside for the sake of preserving something larger? Many observers drew comparisons to previous turning points in royal history. They pointed to moments when the crown faced uncertainty and was ultimately forced to redefine itself. Different eras produced different challenges, but the underlying themes often remained the same. Leadership required sacrifice, stability required discipline, and continuity required a willingness to think beyond the immediate moment. According to those familiar with the instruction, Queen Elizabeth's final guidance appeared deeply rooted in those principles. As discussions continued, signs of preparation became increasingly noticeable. Reports suggested that attention was shifting toward long-term planning rather than short-term concerns. Conversations about future responsibilities became more prominent. Expectations surrounding the next generation continued to grow. The monarchy, it seemed, was gradually positioning itself for the years ahead. At the center of that process stood King Charles. According to palace whispers, he appeared deeply committed to ensuring that his mother's wishes were respected. This was not simply a matter of honoring family tradition. For Charles, the instruction reportedly represented a final act of guidance from the monarch who had shaped both his life and his understanding of duty. Carrying that responsibility was no small task. Yet those closest to the institution suggested he viewed it as an obligation he could not ignore. The result was a growing sense that change was no longer a distant possibility. It was approaching steadily. The discussion sparked by the instruction had already begun influencing expectations, relationships, and priorities. The future remained uncertain, but one thing seemed increasingly clear. Queen Elizabeth's final message was continuing to shape events in ways few had anticipated. And as conversations evolved and preparations quietly advanced, attention gradually shifted toward an even larger question that would ultimately define how this extraordinary chapter would be remembered. As the dust slowly settled, one final question remained. What would Queen Elizabeth's legacy ultimately mean for the future of the crown? In the end, Queen Elizabeth's final instruction may have been less about the present than the future. It was a message designed not merely to guide a king, but to shape generations yet to come. As the significance of everything that had unfolded became clearer, a remarkable realization began taking shape across the royal household. The instruction that sparked so much speculation was never truly about resolving a single issue or influencing a single decision. Its purpose appeared far greater. According to those who reflected on its meaning, Queen Elizabeth's final guidance represented a long-term vision for the monarchy itself, a vision rooted in survival, continuity, and the preservation of an institution that had endured through centuries of triumph, turmoil, and transformation. Throughout her reign, Elizabeth witnessed moments that could have altered the course of the monarchy forever. She saw periods of immense popularity and periods of painful criticism. She navigated family divisions, constitutional challenges, and rapidly changing public expectations. Yet through every crisis, one principle remained constant. The crown could only endure if those entrusted with it understood that service came before self-interest. That belief was not merely part of her leadership style. It became the foundation upon which her entire reign was built. Many observers believe that same principle formed the heart of her final instruction. Duty, responsibility, commitment. These were not simply words repeated throughout royal history. They were the values that had carried the institution through some of its most difficult chapters. As discussions surrounding the instruction continued, it became increasingly clear that Elizabeth wanted future generations to understand those lessons just as deeply as she had. For Prince William, that message appeared especially significant. His path toward kingship was no longer a distant concept discussed only in theoretical terms. The future was approaching steadily. Expectations surrounding his leadership continued to grow with each passing year. Yet the instructions seemed to offer more than guidance. It offered a reminder that successful leadership would not be measured by personal achievement alone. It would be measured by his ability to protect the institution for those who came after him. That challenge carries enormous weight. Every future sovereign inherits not only privileges but responsibilities accumulated across generations. William's journey will inevitably be shaped by modern challenges unlike those faced by previous monarchs. Public scrutiny is greater. Expectations are higher. The pace of change is faster. Yet according to the philosophy reflected in Queen Elizabeth's guidance, the core mission remains unchanged. Preserve trust, protect continuity, serve something larger than yourself. At the same time, King Charles finds himself occupying a uniquely important role within this transition. Reports suggest he understands better than anyone the responsibility attached to implementing his mother's wishes. He spent decades learning from her example. He witnessed firsthand the sacrifices required to sustain the institution through changing times. Now, as king, he carries the task of ensuring that the values she championed continue to guide the monarchy forward. That responsibility is not simple. It requires balancing tradition with modernization. It demands careful leadership during a period of uncertainty. Most importantly, it requires maintaining public confidence while preparing the next generation to inherit responsibilities of their own. In many ways, Charles stands between two eras, one shaped by Queen Elizabeth's extraordinary reign, another still waiting to be fully defined. History suggests that every monarchy survives by adapting without abandoning its foundations. That lesson echoes throughout centuries of royal experience. Institutions endure when they remain connected to the principles that gave them strength in the first place. According to those who reflected on Elizabeth's final instruction, that may be the lesson she remembered most. Of course, the future remains uncertain. No instruction, no matter how carefully written, can eliminate every challenge waiting ahead. New crises will emerge. New debates will arise. New generations will bring new expectations. Yet amid that uncertainty, there is also reason for optimism. The very existence of this guidance demonstrates a commitment to preparation, continuity, and long-term thinking. It reflects a belief that the monarchy can continue evolving while remaining faithful to its purpose. Perhaps that is why the revelations surrounding Queen Elizabeth's final instruction resonated so deeply. It was not simply about the past. It was not even primarily about the present. It was about the future. It was about ensuring that the lessons learned through decades of service would continue guiding the institution long after one reign ended and another began. And as palace doors closed once again, one truth remained impossible to ignore. Queen Elizabeth's final instruction had not ended a chapter, it had quietly begun a new one. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.